My name is K.Thomas, W1DED. Today I have with me an old friend, James Gallo, KB2FMH. James has joined me a couple times on the show, and I'm really excited about him being with me today. He's going to be talking about an upcoming DXpedition to American Samoa, where he'll be operating with a couple other ham radio operators under the call sign KH8RRC. But James will tell us all about that. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Kevin, and thanks so much for doing this. I feel that we've got to help people understand how to best apply their skills to chase DX, especially when it's a rare at no POTA and a rare island, as well as the DXCC. Because my last few experiences have shown me that too many folks just don't get it. Even listening to other expeditions taking calls, there were just so many people who, I don't want to say do it wrong, but they're not doing it right.
Well, James, I appreciate you taking the time to do this because I think oftentimes we know of an upcoming DXpedition. We want to get that country into our log, but they're, especially for newcomers or like myself that have only been back in the hobby for the past year, it's good to get that reminder of how best to make the contact and get in the log. So thank you for doing that. So before we get into the tips, tell me more about the genesis of this particular DXpedition to the American Samoa.
It has a twofold purpose, Kevin. The club that I'm active with expeditions on, the RRC, or Russian Robinson Club, as you might remember, we recently celebrated 30 years of operation, and we did that in Cuba on Cayo Coco Island, where we also were at the national park. And of course, just anywhere on the island, you're part of the IOTA. So for that 30th anniversary celebration, uh, we did very well in that expedition. But it seems that the month of July is Russian Robinson Club Activity Month. Now you might say, well, why is it just a club have an activity month? There are over 1,100 members worldwide in the Russian Robinson Club, and it's all about islands. Hence the name, Robinson, like Robinson Crusoe was an island guy. Let me slide off for a minute here. Look for Robinson Crusoe Island, also known as Juan Fernandez, off the coast of Chile. There's going to be an expedition there coming February. It's starting to show on social media, such the DX Facebook groups. So Juan Fernandez is coming up. I may be on that. I'm a backup for that. If somebody drops out, I'll be there, and it'll be a joy because that's another nice place to go. Nonetheless, the team leader, who's the North America liaison for the Russian Robinson Club, my friend Yuri N3QQ, just gave me a call, I don't know, about a month ago, and said, we're going to American Samoa. You want to come? No, he said, I'm going. I'm going to American Samoa to operate for Activity Month. Would you like to come? I said, sure. Why not? And then we elicited our friend Hal. Well, we tried a few people, but Hal was the first to say, I'm on board. I could use a trip south of the equator. So the three of us are going down there from we're landing on the 3rd, hopefully get some wire up in the air on the 4th and activate until late on the 17th, break down on the 18th, and early on the 19th we go home. So we're going to spend a substantial amount of time there. My longest to date on it at location was 10 days in Cuba. Even though the K7K trip took 2 weeks plus, there was a lot of traveling. We probably spent 4 days on the boat and 2 days flying in each direction. But this one, we're going to get where we're going in one calendar day because we have very good connecting flights. So I'm going New York to Honolulu and an hour at the airport, and then the next flight south to American Samoa. So I'll have about 18 hours of airtime or seat time, so I'll be a little bit fatigued when we arrive there. So it's going to take a couple hours to unwind, and then we could start, throwing everything up in the trees there on the mountaintop.
So what are you bringing for gear?
I'm bringing my 480HX, although I'm not going to use the 200-watt part because I'm also bringing an expert 1.3K amplifier, which works terrifically. I'm bringing a couple of spider poles, a crap load of wire, about 600 feet of coax. I'm waiting for the last 300 feet or three 100-foot rolls to come from our friends DXC, who supports us all the time. Uh, our our good friend Tim, who you recently interviewed, is always kind to us, and I want to say his right hand man, but it's a girl, Terry Greiser, is his assistant and has been for years. Tim thinks, she does. You want something, you go to her. So I had contacted her. Well, I spent a lot of time chatting with both of them at Hamvention uh, at the contest dinner, and we were hanging out in the hotel, I guess, playroom every night with the pizza party that they would sponsor. 10:30 every night. We'd have 15 pies assorted delivered. Nonetheless, I had asked her for some items, and I wanted to bring my spider poles, so I looked at the Nanook long case. Looks like a rifle case, so they sent me one of those. They sent me a big hard case for the amplifier, lots of balance. We're replacing a burnt out 30-meter passband filter, but a QRO 1500-watt filter. So all in all, for this trip, they're probably into it about $3,000, which is relatively nothing compared to what other expeditions need. But we have a lot of things. Every time we get something, we reuse it on the next expedition. We don't ask for the same stuff over and over. I would, but I have nowhere to put it. But our team leader Yuri, he keeps all the stuff in his garage in Washington, and he's the guy bringing the huge, big tubs that you see at Home Depot. They're like 3 feet by a foot and a half, or 20 inches, and pretty tall. He fills those up till they hit 50 pounds, zip ties them, and labels them, and brings those as checked baggage. But I'm bringing, as I said, I'm bringing a lot of wire, an off-center fed dipole, long wires. I'm making a 10, 15, 20 fan dipole with one of the new one-to-one balance Terry sent me. I think we got a half a dozen balance this time because it's all going to be wire there. It's impractical to transport anything bigger. Although Hal is bringing a 6-meter Yagi that he just purchased, but because 6 meters isn't big, it breaks down into small enough sections. He could put it into his 40-inch survival bag that he travels with, one of those waterproof, like sailors use. Very expensive bag. You roll it up, you squeeze the air out of it. You could literally submerge it up to, I think, 50 meters, and it won't take any water in. So he uses that, and he's bringing a lot of stuff in there. But the beauty is, with these international flights in Hawaiian Air, you get 2 free bags checked, 50 pounds apiece. So that's why I'm bringing a piece of luggage that's going to have maybe a week's worth of clothes, because the place we're going to has nearby laundromat. We could go to wash our clothes rather than bring like underwear for each of the 20 days. I'll bring maybe change of clothes for 4 days and just recycle them if I remember to change. Once you get going, you pass out on the on a chair next to the mic. You wake up, you have a little coffee, and you get back to it. Hopefully, the propagation is going to be in our favor, but that's about the gist of it. And the usual computers for logging and power supplies and high current power strips, extension cord, and because it's a civilized place, there is a grocery store for food. We're going to rent a car so we can go up and down the mountain. We're not going to hike everything up there. It's almost 1,000-foot elevation on the top of the mountain that you see in some of the pictures. That the national park there, American Samoa National Park. I think it's POTA number is K0053, and for islands on the air, it's OC for Oceania 45. If that means anything to anyone.
So, James, are you able to get all the gear necessary into 2 crates per person or 2 pieces of luggage per person?
Oh yes, I believe so.
When you were in Cuba, you stayed at a hotel. Is it the same situation in American Samoa, or are you renting a house?
No, we have a staging area, which is a friend's place, but Yuri has a friend, a good friend in National Park Service there. They have uh, they have a structure on in the within the park in the area that they use for because it's a remote location. So if they go up there to do anything, they have a building to stay in because you never know when you're going to get caught in a storm. Down in the South Pacific, a couple of 100 miles south of the equator. I'll be in the southern hemisphere this time, which is new to me. I've always stayed on the northern section of Earth. Now I'll be in the southern half. Uh, so we're going to be in there so we could do it as a POTA entity. Otherwise, if we stayed at the staging room, we'd be just outside the park. And the POTA rules. Got to be in it. Everything. Your shoes, you, and all your crap.
So I presume that you'll have commercial power, or will you be on generator power?
They have a generator. They say there's power there, but they're providing a generator. They ran a wire up. It's a pretty civilized island. I mean, you think, some islands, these Pacific or South Pacific islands, are, I don't know. I don't want to say third world, but uncivilized. Let's say it's not a deserted island. It's not like Kiska where we're going to be, neighboring with small wildlife. It's people live there. There's a big system. They've got an international airport. We're going there on giant Airbus A330s, so they can land supersized jets, and they have the infrastructure to support tourism. So we'll have plug-in power, and if not, there's a 5 kilowatt generator, which will be fine. We don't run our amps at full. The Juma amps for the FT8 will run at about 500. They're rated for 1,000, but we usually run those at 4 or 500 because FT8 seems to find its way through the hash. But for me, I'm going to need at least a kilowatt to get my voice heard around the world, and the CW likewise. But we're really hoping to do well on 6 meters, both sideband and CW and digital. So this 5 element Yagi that Hal just got again from DXE, but unfortunately he bought it before he knew he was coming, or I would have had Terry give it to us and saved him $500. And they'd gladly give me whatever I ask for. Anytime I say I need this, she says, "Is there anything else you want, James?" So again, they're real good, and that's why I put their banner up to show support for them. A little plug for our friend Tim Duffy.
Well, I know Tim Duffy and DX Engineering. They're just a phenomenal company. When I was talking to him the other day, I couldn't help but give him the perspective that as a newcomer back into the hobby, DX Engineering has been so helpful, not only from a gear standpoint, but from a technical advice standpoint. They've been really great for me personally, and I'm sure for a lot of other people. So clearly you're going to be all modes, I presume all bands, 24/7 for 13 days. Is that the hope?
Uh, yeah. Well, if we can stagger our sleep, we'll have staggered modes. Because if I'm awake, I'm on sideband. If Hal is awake, he's going to be doing CW, and I think he knows how to operate the FT8 and the FT4. And if he and I are sleeping, Yuri will be running two FT8 stations. Well, one will be FT8, one will be FT4 to give everybody the chance. If it was up to me, I wouldn't do any FT8. I'm not a fan of it, but I don't want to get into my ranting tirades about why people shouldn't use it. I mean, if you like it, you like it. I grew up with a phone that hung on the wall that you dialed with your finger. So technology, not that technology's new to me. I'm very technically adept, and I fix and build my own computers. But when I'm on an amateur radio, to me, all I know it is as when I started listening to shortwave in the late '60s with my grandmother's Zenith Transoceanic. So I like the sound of the voices, and of course Morse code. Well, that's the original digital. But the new wave stuff, people want it, and if it makes them happy and they get their credits for it, that's that's a plus for us. It's our goal to go there. Sure, we like it. Of course, we like it, but it takes a lot of work to go there, and we're not going on vacation. I don't know if I mentioned it. When I was in Cuba, I walked past, sometimes on the beach in the Caribbean Sea. I went in up to my knees for 3 minutes once in the 10 days I was there, and I never dipped a toe in the pools because I wasn't there for that. We were there to give contacts so all the millions of radio operators around the world have the opportunity to get the contact of the rare location. We don't even get the contact. I don't have Cayo Coco, but I gave it to 15,000 people, but I don't have it. I don't need it. I don't care about that. I do this part for the fun.
So let's get into this, James. Let's get into how best to make a contact with KH8RRC. Give us some tips.
All right, I'm glad you mentioned that because I wrote a big thing about this, and I'm looking at it now, but I'll briefly cut through it. It's not just for the KH8. Any expedition. This is going to help people on this and any future expedition that may or may not be related to parks on the air or islands or any place other than a DXCC that's rare. So let's start with the concept of chasing the DX. We all like to know that our signal, voice, key tones, digital, travels around the world and is received in someone's radio. And then when we see our call sign returned, spoken or, tones, we get excited and you're in the log and you look forward to that. But so people know what DX, anything outside of the country you're in is DX. So for somebody in Puerto Rico, USA is DX. But this, what is this, almost 700,000 US operators active now. So it's not all that rare. We're like number 291, I think, or we're at the bottom of the most wanted. So there's a lot of hams that live in countries that are considered rare because it's not many hams in that country, but there are places where people live, like Seychelles. I have a friend there who helped me out with the Autism Week, S76A, Ravi. When he gets on, his pileups are unbelievably wild because he's one of three guys in Seychelles. It's pretty far. I think it's in the Indian Ocean on the east side of Africa. So he's pretty rare. But you still have to deal with conditions. Most of us go for this small amount of time, 20 days of being there, but only, what'd you say, about 14 days operating. Let's say we cut 4 days off the 20. Yeah, 15. Let's call it around 15 days on the air. And then we're not going to go back or somebody isn't going back for a long time. It might be another decade before somebody gets back or more. Uh, the Bouvet Island one proved to us that it's really tough to get to. So it might be another generation. You and I may not see Bouvet activated again. Our kids will, but we might not. Hopefully we do, and we're too old to care at that time. So let's not dicker around too much with that. So the more rarely activated something is, the more unruly pileups become, and a lot of operators, new, old, good, bad, they'll throw caution to the wind. They'll throw courtesy to the wind to try to get that contact, as we've heard on several recent rare expeditions. People are just getting more and more out of hand, calling over each other, throwing out partials repeatedly. But most of all, the biggest problem is the concept of working split. And it seems that you could be a veteran licensed for 40 years or a new guy or somebody like yourself who You've been a ham a long time, but you gave up being active for a good number of years, and now you're back. You may need some refreshers on protocols, but it seems like you pick it up quickly. Maybe it's because you have the desire to do it right, or you have an intellectual ability to understand something and remember it quickly. A lot of people don't have that. When uh, when I started radio, mid '80s, I had two-piece radio, transmitter receiver separates. The reason was because quite often conditions will allow a solid transmission on one band from place A to B, but their receive wasn't so good back from B to A. So they might be transmitting on 20 meters, listening on 40 or 15, depending on how the conditions are. And that's ultimate split, cross band and, cross mode if you have to. If you're on 20 upper and I'm calling back on 40 lower, we're, we're splitting across bands and modes. But it works, and people understood how that goes. The new radios, like our 480s, we have dual VFOs capability, but you got to know to hit that VFO A, B button, how to tune them, and then to hit the split button and make sure that your VFOs are set properly for receive. And then when you key, it switches to the TX, your TX frequency, which is the DX station's listening or QSX frequency. People don't seem to get that. And the amazing part, Kevin, is, and I was listening to one of the fellas operating at the Victor Papa 6 Alpha, which is the current popular one, where they're demonstrating that radio in a box where there's nobody on the island. They're on a boat a few hundred yards offshore, operating it via UHF remote. The guy was clearly saying, the operator, I think his name was Mike. I don't remember his call. He's the tech guy who helped build the radio in a box. Not the fastest operator, but he speaks well and he was following the rules. He would say, Victor Pop, VP6 Alpha, listening up 5 to 10. And he would say that repeatedly. VP6A, up 5, up 10, 5 to 10, 5 or 10, whatever he wants. But he was saying it every over. He would, 7-3, VP6A, up 5. And people would still call on his frequency. And it's okay if somebody makes a mistake. Maybe they did their tuning on the VFOs, but they didn't push the split button. You forget, you're excited. You're waiting for your amplifier to warm up. You're waiting for your rotor to point the beam in the right direction. You're on your last sip of coffee and you're calling to your wife who's 3 rooms away, and she's screaming, "What?" And I need coffee. I'm chasing DX, and she says, "Go chase your butt," because she doesn't care. Um, they may forget, but if they do it repeatedly, it becomes a problem. And then it leads to the phase what we've come to love, the up police. Those fellas who feel it's their duty to go on the TX frequency and start saying, "He's working split, you idiot, or you moron. He's working split, you lid. Up 5." Instead of just saying, "Just working split," remind them he's working split. You don't have to yell about how stupid somebody is. Maybe they just don't know. And then that leads to the anti-up police saying, "Stop wasting time. You're blocking the air. Shut up, you moron. Just tell them to split." So you've got 3 categories. You got the guy not working split, the people who are trying to remind him aggressively he's got to go split, and then the people who are now policing them. What's next? What's next is the idiots who tune on the TX frequency or start to play music or send crazy signals. I heard one guy sending CQ in CW over the TX frequency, and I'm just thinking, why? What do you get out of that? But back to our program, it hurts us as much as the rest of the world, the callers, because we're not able to give the contact out. if conditions are fair to good, and they can be, I hope they are, when we get there. We got lucky in Cuba, only 3 days of bad sun, and then it picked up where we were talking, all points on the compass with equal strength on most bands. So hopefully we'll have a little bit of that down in Samoa. But we're looking for the goal of many contacts, shortest period of time. We don't want to waste time fighting the QRM by having to repeat somebody's call. W1DED, do you copy? You're 5'9", and you're like, are you calling me? And I say again, Delta Echo Delta, you're 5'9". Okay, then it might take 3 or 4 or 5 shots. We saw that happening with the 3Y0J, and they said in their after report the QRM was so bad sometimes it took a couple of minutes to complete a QSO in sideband and CW because the noise could be just as bad. I don't know how you could interfere too much with FT modes, but I'm sure there's a way, and the people who want to interfere will find the best way to do it because it's what gets them off rather than getting the contact and then sitting back and listening, which is what I like to do. Sometimes if I don't need it, I'll just listen because I love to listen to pileups. And the secret is that's how you learn too, from listening to how other people do it. I didn't wake up one day being an expert pileup manager. It took time. You got to remember things, especially when you're using different calls. I'll remember that I am KH8RRC as soon as I sit down. I don't need to have it written on a note like so many of them. They show you the sign on the wall with the call sign, the IOTA number. I don't know the word for it, but I have a memory that once I put something in my head, that's it. I won't mistakenly use the wrong call. If somebody says, "What's your IOTA number?" I know it. "What's your park number?" I know it. Maybe it's because I'm the guy building the QRZ page, so I'm repeatedly associating those characters with this event, whether it's letters or numbers in sequence. It's burned into my head. And I also have a good memory for taking calls. As I mentioned somewhere else in my diatribe, guys like you and I, avid POTA activators, I don't want to sound uppity, but we're better at pileups than any DXer, only DXer, because they go a couple of times a year, and they do it, and then they stop. We're doing it all the time. I know you put out a good signal. You're doing a couple of 100 Qs an hour sometimes on a good day, and so am I. If I don't come home with 200 or 300, I don't feel like I did anything good when I go on an activation. So we get a lot of experience, but we also see a lot of mistakes made because we get it too. Another thing that I want to stress with an expedition versus the casual, POTA or island activation of somewhere popular and common. Like if I'm on Long Island, New York, that's IOTA because it's an island. It's one of the New York Island set. And if I go out to Valley Stream State Park, it's a POTA. But I could get there and every day in 20 minutes. And an activation will be casual for me there. I won't need to go super fast. If I get somebody with a 2 for park to park, I'll happily take their numbers, both numbers. I'll listen to their spiel or diatribe about what I like to call their life story, where they are exactly, how close they are to somewhere else, how big the tree in their yard is, and minutia that I ordinarily won't need to know. But when we're at an expedition, any DXpedition, not just mine, they don't need any of that. We want your call sign. We want you to understand that we got it right. If I repeat back to you, Whiskey 1, Delta Norway Delta, you say Delta Echo Delta, and I say Delta Echo Delta. That means I got it. I'm going to say, you're in the log, 7-3. I don't want to hear that, well, you're about a 55 here to me, and, on this island in Maine, and it could be better. There's QSB, but it's raining today, so that may be a factor in the signal. And, I don't have an umbrella, but I got to go out to the store later to get some milk. And I need some cake for the party we're having tomorrow. I don't need to know any of that crap. I don't want to know. You're wasting your time, but more so, not mine as much as the next guy. The person waiting, sitting there saying, come on, shut up already. Let him finish. I'm next, or I want to try again. Because the good operators won't call until they know you're finished. And my signal for that is because I can't comfortably say QRZ because I'm not operating in CW, but I will say 7-3 because that's the courtesy. I could just say thanks, which is the same. But sometimes I'll do that. I'll just say thanks. You're in the log. Next. And people know. They get to know my rhythm. And that's something you get from following the DX code of conduct is learn the operator's style. I'm doing it my way. You do yours your way. We try our best to speak with very good, clear enunciation, proper diction, using standard phonetics. Sometimes standard phonetics don't work with people whose native language is not English. So you may need to say something else. Maybe November isn't good for the letter N. Maybe Norway works. Maybe Nicaragua works. Maybe Nancy works better. Something that is, clearly indicative of that particular letter as the representative letter that you're looking to, put out there. But we try to always use the standard phonetics that have become well known around the ham radio world for years. Excuse me. So back to the split. When you're going to operate split, make sure you've got your TXRX right. Key your mic once to see that it switches to the frequency that I say. If I'm on 7200, which would be insane for me to be on 7200, thinking I'm going to get anything done if you know what goes on 7200. Uh, but just for a round number, and I say listening up 5. You want to be when you key your mic, you want to see 7.205. When you unkey 7.20. Quite often, because we can, we'll transmit just below the general section, which has less action because there's a lot less extras than there are. There's a lot more generals than extras and advanced. A lot more, probably 80% more. So we'll transmit just below, maybe 14,220, 14,223. Generals can't go there, but we're listening 228, 235. And we do try to stay away from the designated frequencies. Like I would never go to 14,230 because I'll get interference from the SSTV guys. Even if they're not using the frequency, they'll interfere with us because they feel it's their turf. And it's an accepted gentleman's thing that's theirs. 14,300 is the maritime net, emergency net. There are some other very popular nets we stay away from. We stay away from the AM windows on 20, which I think is 14,290, 7,290 for 40 meters, and up at 75 meters. Well, we don't go to 75. We stay in real 80, below 3,800. The DX window there is like 3879 to 3,800 is where DX goes. So we'll stay in that area. But sometimes if it's not busy, we'll listen up. We'll go listening up 5 to 10. So that puts my listening, let's say at 7, excuse me, 3795 to I'm going to go 5 to 15 to 3805. So I'm listening that in that spread. So maybe a general could slip in. But if it gets really hectic, we're going to drop down. Sorry, generals, upgrade. That's all I can say. If you can't get there one way, buy the next tier for yourself and come visit us. Certain areas we could transmit where U.S. can't. When I was in Alaska, because of where it is, in what zone it's in, we were allowed to transmit like at 7.100, 7.90, yeah, 7.09, excuse me, 09 to 100. But we have to listen where most of the people are. So we listen up at 7.130 or 178, 180, 190 for the generals to be able to get us. I mean, we want to make it available to everybody. And we do plan on some 10-meter activity for any techs. That's why I'm building a 10, 15, 20 fan dipole, which I'm going to start on this week. I have everything I need except some half-inch PVC to make the spreaders. So I'll go get a 10-foot length of that. I'm going to cut them into 10-inch pieces so I have enough spreaders to keep them apart. The further apart they are, the less interaction with each other, easier to tune. Because you've got to tune these wire antennas at the location you're using them because of the different grounds and different surroundings interact against the SWR. And what you don't want to have to keep fussing with it. If I tuned it here in the park, it won't work there because different ground properties and elevation. Nonetheless, make sure you're on the right frequencies. If you make a mistake, don't worry about it. Somebody will tell you we're operating split. Just say thank you, sorry, and go do it correctly. Don't engage them and start arguing. Don't fight back. Just say thanks. Even if they call you, you stupid idiot, he's working split. Thank you. And hit your split button or adjust your VFO. Doesn't pay to engage. It only makes things worse. If you're covering me up, all those thousands and thousands of people trying to get in can't hear me respond to them. I may hear them because I don't hear what's on my transmit frequency. I don't monitor it at all. And with my radio, we don't have a band scope. I'm not seeing everything on the band scope. We have a couple of 7610s. I think Yuri's bringing one, but I'm not going to use that. He'll use that for digital or CW. It may be a secondary for phone, and I do have adapters for my headset for literally every model radio, because all I travel with normally is the headset. This time I'm actually bringing equipment because it's a very small group, and Yuri doesn't want to travel with 7 of those tubs like he took to Cuba. He's just bringing 2. Nonetheless, we don't hear anything on our transmit frequency. So I won't know how loud other people are covering me. I'll hear you. You won't hear me. It just hurts everybody. So follow the rules. Split means split. Look at it like this. It's a two-way highway, right? I'm on the southbound side, coming down. I'm dropping my call to everyone waiting to collect it, right? You and 100,000 other people are on the northbound lane. You're all vying to get pass each other up. Sometimes it's bumper to bumper, and you really can't move until the next car in front of you advances. But once they advance and get off the exit, the next guy moves. As we take calls, we're enabling the exit. You can pull over to the side and watch, or you can keep going to your next contact somewhere else. But if you start jumping into my lane, I've got to swerve around you, but I don't know you're there. So I'm going to hit you. And that impact stops me from giving the call to all those people in the northbound lane. Stay in your lane. Don't come into my lane. It's not going to get you to me any faster. Even if you smash into me, you're not getting the contact because I'm deaf to you in that lane. I don't know you're there. I don't know what else to say about it. It's so simple. It's the simplest thing is you listen here, you go there. You drive on the right to go one way, you get on the left side, always to the right, but you go and you come. I'm coming, you're going, we want to meet. We want to meet somehow on the air. It's like a never-ending loop, right? Everybody's going one way, clockwise. I'm coming counterclockwise. Every time I connect with somebody, in that transition, we make the contact, and that one drops out of the circle, and the next one comes in. I'm perpetually going. Other people are coming in, mating, dropping out. Think of it like that. Come in, get your thing, get what you need, get out. Fast. No life story. Your call sign, that's it. Go ahead.
James, let's presume for a minute that a lot of people do want to do it right, and they're going to operate split properly. But you've said up 5 to 10. Do you have any tips for people on where to be in that 5 to 10 so they can make the contact? What do you recommend?
You never know. I mean, if I say up 5 to 10, I could be up 5.5. Just start tuning. Sometimes, more often than not, we'll start at an edge and work in the opposite direction. If I say up 5 to 10 in this, early on, or the first time I say it, let's say, I'll always start with up 5. Well, let me back up. I always start simplex. I can handle pileups in simplex. I got that experience from POTA because I'd say half or more of the POTA hunters are new, and split would be just too much for their head. So we don't do POTA split. So I do simplex, and I can get 6, 7 calls a minute in simplex with POTA because a lot of people want to tell me a little bit more than I care to know. The good ones just say 7-3 and they thank you and they move on. I love those people. But the guy who tells me where he is and what his equipment is, and I'm nice. I'll say, yeah, that's 7300, most popular radio on the planet. Sounds great, thanks. And if they don't know that thanks means go, they keep talking. I'll say, gotta go. You're in the log. I got it. There are people behind you. You got to remind them that they're not the only one knocking on the door. There's a crowd of people trying to push through, like 7:59 a.m. Black Friday at Best Buy. There's a million people waiting for that door to open, and they all want to get through and get what they need. And we got it for everybody. We'll never go out of stock on our contacts, but we can only give it out so fast. And we need that time to do it. We don't have time to waste greeting people as they come in the door. Our handshake is your call sign. It's correct. Thank you. Next one. So follow us. If you hear 5 to 10, try 5.5. Try 6. We'll hear a bleed. Try 3 kilohertz. I mean, 0.3. Try 0.5. Try 1 kilohertz up. 1.2. Try to listen. If you could hit your VFO AB button fast enough and remember where it is, so when you decide to call, you're not on our frequency. So you got to watch where your AB is. Or if you have the band scope, watch where the action is. You'll see lots of things. But when you see me, when I come back and I say, Whiskey 1 Delta, complete your call again. And Whiskey 1 Delta Echo, what's the last letter? When you see just that burst, even though others might be called, but you'll see that single burst on the spectrum or the waterfall. Be there. Try to be there on your TX. Because we don't change every call. We take as many as we can until it's just too many, and then we'll go up a KC, half a KC, a quarter of a KC. Just turn the dial a little bit to make it so we can copy people, because you're going to have people calling on every 100 hertz from the 5 to the 10, because they all want to try to be the one that we hear. Here's another trick. If I say 5 to 10, go to 10.2. Don't stop at 10. If I'm on 14,250, don't stop at 260. Go to 260.2, 260.5. If I'm up on 260, I'll hear, and I might tune up a little bit. And if I have a radio with a scope, if I'm using the 7610 or 7300 or 756 Pro 3, they all have the little band scope. And if I make it a very, a wide screen for a narrow bandwidth, I'll see a good piece of that signal coming from you. So go up a little bit. Don't go low. We're never going to listen low, although we might. We might be at 4.8 if we say 5. If I hear something that sounds a little off on the low side, and after years of doing it, I know which way to go. When you hear that Charlie Brown's teacher voice, you know by the tone, is it above you or is it below you? So we might go down there, but we'll never, ever, ever listen on RTX frequency. Never. No reason for it. No reason at all. I mean, some guys have the capability to do it, but they don't. There's no reason, because if you do that, you defeat the purpose of split and the effectiveness of it. The moment you take one call that calls on your frequency, you ruin it for your whole expedition, because people will always think, well, maybe I'll be the guy. I'm the lucky one he'll hear on his own frequency. So we just don't do it. It's like a taboo thing, so to speak. Oh, that's it. I mean, split isn't hard. Courtesy isn't hard. DX code of conduct. It's out there. Google it. It's a fixed thing. It's not too long to read, and it makes sense. The key is listen, listen, and listen again. Be sure of our call. Too many times, and it's a few, but a few is too many in this case. I'll have somebody say to me, after making the contact, I acknowledge their call. What's your call? And it just stops my brain. I say, what are you calling me for? Without knowing who I am. I said, I'd give you any call, AB2XYZ. And they're like, oh, come on, that's not a call sign. I said, that's what I'm giving you. If you don't know who I am, I could be anybody. So, go back to the drawing board. But you're in the log. You're in the log, but if you don't know my call, you got bigger problems than pile-ups, brother.
James, I appreciate you taking the time today to give us a little bit of advice. I'm looking forward to hearing you on the air. So July 4th through July 17th, James and...
Ideally.
Okay, ideally. James, along with Hal W8HC and Yuri N3QQ, will be in American Samoa. They're number 71 on the club log list. KH8RRC. Thank you, James.
Thank you. And 71 for DXCC, but it's an at-no POTA and a semi-rare island. So we're marketing. Let me just close with, as of this morning, we were at 39,980-something members. With this close to 40,000 members in POTA. It'll be there by tomorrow. So those people, and they've been great. They're helping us out. They're making donations. Now, if this video hits, I hope it does before we go, don't be afraid to go to our QRZ page and click that support button. It doesn't have to be a lot, but we are offering a very special custom QSL card. We're going to make 100 of them for the first $100 support donations. So we do have a good amount. They're running out. Don't delay. But even a $5 donation helps us, because it pays for the stuff we don't get donated and the things we don't see, coming. We don't know what we're going to run into there. A car rental could cost us $2,000 because there's very few of them on American Samoa, but we need it to do what we got to do. And the more people help, the less comes out of our pocket, and that means we can go do more of these things, because we're not putting ourselves in bankruptcy doing the one. Help us out. But definitely call. That's what we want. Your call in our log. Thank you, Kevin.
So please support KH8RRC. Go to the QRZ page if you can. Definitely seek them out on air. Follow the directions when it comes to the DX code of conduct. Think about split frequency. Safe travels, James. I'll be looking forward to talking to you again.
7-3.